So, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and doing this with me. I'm a big fan of yours, and I know you're really busy, and as people are going to find out soon, there's a lot of reasons why. And in fact, you're losing your voice a little bit today, right? Because of all the speaking that you do on behalf of this movement. And I just want to appreciate you for being a part of this and doing this with me and making the time.
Thank you for the invitation. And yeah, my voice is just a little bit raspy today. We'll bear with that. And yeah, it's a result of really going at it. But I really appreciate you having me on your show.
My pleasure, yeah. I think the way I wanted to start off today was to first share with you and then, with everyone, just kind of my experience of you and sort of how I intersected with witnessing you and the work that you're doing in the United Independence and the INC. And that'll kind of set the stage for then us to dive into that work and all the amazing things you're doing. And then from there, I have a few other things I think we can get into sort of your history and how, because I'm very curious about like how the hell you had the courage, the commitment, and the competency, like what prepared you to get to where you are now. And then I'd like to maybe get into some stuff about RFK Jr. and how that's distinct, but there's some interesting synergistic things happening there. And then following up on maybe finishing with just inviting everyone to the ways that you're offering people to participate in the movement through the INC and everything else.
Sounds great. Let's go.
Okay, so here's how I think this is great because I think it's a bit relatable actually for many people. I was very disengaged, you could say, in politics and sort of at a loss, and the more I learned, actually, the more kind of my apathy would grow in some ways because I think we all feel a certain distaste or disgust, and we feel dissatisfied with what's going on, and some of us even take it further and we start to identify the symptoms, and then we take it even further and we start to chase that down and to identify the core root problems of that. But most of us can't get past that, it seems like, and very few people have been even able to articulate those root cause problems in a really sincere and kind of authentic and truthful way. And that's where I kind of was. And I was, I guess, willing in some ways, but ultimately it didn't feel like there was space in my life. And certainly I did not feel able to really affect change or, really have power until I came to the INC 23 in Austin. And this was my first kind of awakening to, the work that you were doing. And I was able to hear you articulate, again, all those problems, but then beyond that, offer these solutions and show people what you already are doing and all the momentum that's already building behind this independent movement. And what I would describe it as is what you did for me is you made me response able, like literally, like able to respond to this situation that we're all inside. And then from there, I was had the empowerment, I had the inspiration to get more involved, and I'm excited because I've invested, myself in this movement, and I want to share that and give that opportunity to everyone else. And so what I would ask you to start with is sort of set the stage for us, because I think you do a great job of just saying, like, where are we? When are we in this story of United States politics and this experiment of American, democracy? And, where did we go wrong? Where are we at right now? And what can we do now, with work that you're doing, and what's possible for us?
Yeah, so again, I apologize for the raspy voice today.
It's gonna sound hot.
It's gonna sound, okay,
for the
great.
Ladies, they're gonna love it.
Great, all right, we're gonna go for that. I think I wanna start by just kind of reflecting back what one of the pieces that I heard from you say, and affirm how normal it is to begin to become politically disengaged, to become overwhelmed. I think that to stay engaged in the traditional landscape of politics requires a person to be somehow myopic and disconnected from the truth. I'm gonna stay in this left-right fight And my side's definitely got the upper hand on morality, and the other side are the moral degenerates. Like literally that's exactly like back and forth how it goes. But when you start to, Wizard of Oz metaphor, like peek behind the curtain, Matrix metaphor, like take the red pill. When you start to look outside of the aperture of the traditional media narratives and like look around a little bit, you see, oh, we have a military industrial complex that basically controls a huge amount of what happens in this country, and they profit through our international violence. We profit off of killing people. Okay, the more bombs we drop, the more that the military contractors make. Okay, we should probably question that. And I don't remember exactly the details, but there was a point where I believe all like armaments were like produced publicly, and then over the last 100 years or so, more and more of the manufacturing for military has gone into the private sector. So then it creates a whole new dynamic where now shareholders profit from war, and that spread itself around the world. So that's a really big problem. The extent to which we have a healthcare system, and you know this very, very well based upon the nature of your work in the world also, that profits off of people being sick, that profits off of people slowly dying, degenerate diseases that otherwise could be healed, except for our Western medicine complex chooses to manage disease rather than heal it. And we have millions of people that suffer and prematurely die because of profit interests, when there's actually better solutions that don't have the same profit interests and therefore don't have the same political power. These are two examples. I could give you about 20.
Exactly.
And basically the base equation is profit, interest, drives control over government, that then has government make decisions that benefit the profit interests and leave humans and nature either disabled, in unnecessary suffering, or premature death. That's the base equation. And that's happening on both sides of the red and blue fence, I would say equally. So to get back to your point, it's a bit of a long-winded way, but I think we're creating some good content here.
Important.
So if you start seeing that, if you start realizing that, if you look at our financial system and the way that we create money and create debt and fractional reserve banking, all that kind of stuff, you're like, this thing's a big sham. Like this is bad. There's a really, really big problem here. And the size of the problem is like this big. And like what's being argued back and forth on the left and the right side is like this big. Okay, yeah, they've got very different positions over abortion. That topic really, really matters to a lot of people. But this dialogue isn't talking about the elephant in the room, which is that the policies and decisions of our corporatocracy are creating huge amounts of carnage in the world, and nobody's talking about it. So you start to see that. You started seeing that. Other people started seeing that. And like, I can't engage with this. This is a joke. This is like lipstick
100%.
on top of like, it's like somebody like painted a turd and now is calling it like a house. Like, no, it's a freaking turd with a little bit of a veneer on it or something. So then you become disengaged. And I think that if you're rational, if you're a little bit awake, that's a natural conclusion. So if you or your audience has become apathetic, disengaged, doesn't feel like it matters what's going on, feels like there's such a clusterfuck of corruption and systemic issues that you don't want to participate in politics as usual, that's a really reasonable conclusion. Okay, so that's the first point I want to make. And I want to acknowledge you and the millions of people like you that are in exactly that position. But the story doesn't end there. A little bit of my backstory is when I was in my early 20s, all I wanted to do was make the world a better place. And so I decided to focus on extreme poverty alleviation. So I went to school. I graduated Summa Cum Laude in international security and conflict resolution. And I created an international nonprofit. And I wanted to crack the code on how to do poverty alleviation work in third world countries in the way that was the most efficient and effective, so we could scale that work and help billions of people get out of poverty. Or that was my kind of like big passion. I spent a couple of years in Africa, and I really enjoyed doing that work. What I figured out after I was in Western Kenya most of the time, I started to look at the dynamics that would produce the greatest results. And I started to observe this locus of control issue. And if you're familiar with the concept, an internal locus of control means that we believe that we affect change in the world. And an external locus of control means that we believe that we are, the subject or the object of the world impacting us, and the world controls us, the world drives us. So it's very, very different psychology. And I was like, that right there is literally the difference between somebody in an impoverished community choosing to innovate on how they do certain things, how they farm, where they defecate, how they purify their water, like these things that like literally are life and death things. They spread disease and stuff. So, but people aren't gonna change anything if they don't believe that they can change or they can make an impact. So I'd literally come into a community, and the first thing I would do is bring community leaders together in a local school building. And if there was a whiteboard, get some chalk and draw a person and draw two people, one with arrows coming out of the person and the other with arrows coming into the person. And I use strong mind, weak mind as a simplification. So I said, look, there's one way of thinking, we'll call it the strong mind, where you believe that you can create change. There's another type of thing, we'll call it the weak mind, where you don't believe that you can create change. Which do you want to be? And the man, the masculine, and the women leaders would be like, strong mind, right? Okay, so that created a foundation that then I could work off of for the next several weeks or months to remember how we are going to change. We can create change. Yeah. Strong mind. Okay, cool. That gives them to build off of. So to come back to this kind of piece, so the disassociation makes sense, but the concern or the critique of that archetype of position is they still have the weak mind. They've rationally realized that this system is a pile of crap, but they haven't yet come to realize that they are powerful enough to affect change to something so powerful, right? But it kind of makes you think about maybe the founding of this country, right? Colonies, Revolutionary Army, Britain, largest military that had ever existed in the history of humanity. And the colonies, their Continental Army, were able to be successful. So at the very heart of the story of the founding of this country is the point that the underdog has the ability to win when we come together as people. So we can achieve that which seems insurmountable through our patriotic passion and devotion and fervor. Okay, so that we know that at a historical level. Okay, so if we apply that to this moment in time, okay, are the issues of today very, very large? Yes. Proportionally, are they larger than the British Army was to the founders of this country? No, I think it's about equal. Ballpark, right? So then we have to start to take on that strong mind. We have to start to believe that we can affect change. And some of us are going to get with that wind a little bit sooner than others, and I'm one of those, right? And there's others in the world, but I have a vision. And I know that we can undergo fundamental political transformation in our lifetime that has us end our life with the world in a different context than we came into this life with. And the systemic issues that we just named and that you all know about are fundamentally transformed at the base level that has the same dynamics that result in carnage and suffering and subjugation of so many are fully and completely resolved. And now our health system and defense and whatever the future of defense is and all the other systems and how our economic systems work are fundamentally designed to improve quality of life for all and create a societal foundation for all to thrive. I actually believe that's possible, and that's our destiny, and that we don't need to just keep putting up with corrupt systems we can't do anything about. Okay, so then we have to figure out, if all that's true, what do I do about it? You know, and so about 10 years ago, and I'll kind of wrap this piece with this, is when I was in Africa, I was just appalled at extreme poverty. You know, seeing like our opulent lifestyle in America, and even people that are maybe struggling here, they're still experiencing some degree of opulence compared to what people in a lot of developing countries are dealing with. And so it's like, man, like we gotta solve this as like a planetary community. Like, this is not okay for so many people to be suffering so intensely and dying for such unnecessary preventable reasons. But then when I was out there, I read a book by John Perkins called The Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And the book, it outlines how he worked for different organizations associated with the American government, and that he had a role. He would go into a country and he would do deals with the upper echelon of that country to be able to get that country to accept debt from the International Monetary Fund and the US and other Western financial institutions, because of a really important like land project or bridge project or dam project or freeway project, something like that. The point wasn't the construction project. The point was to get an elected official to say yes to a loan so that they could do some big project to be able to look good to get for re-election. But what was actually going on is they were agreeing to debt that would then require an interest payment that would then require them to draw resources out of their healthcare and out of their other road construction budgets and out of all this stuff just to service the debt. So an economic hitman is somebody that basically kills a country by putting them into a debt obligation with another country. And I realized we are creating the extreme poverty in the world through our economic policy due to greed and selfishness and short-sightedness. And when I realized that, there was nothing for me to do out there. There was nothing left for me to do. I was just hacking at the leaves of the issue, and my country was the roots.
Wow.
So when I realized that, I basically literally packed up my bags in Kenya, and I came home. And then I had to ask myself the question, okay, then what can I do? How can I use my life to fling myself as like a wrench in the gears to like get into the center of the belly of the beast, to like flip the switches, to reprogram our country to not be this way anymore. And that was about 10 years ago when that devotion like totally clicked on. And then so unlike the average person who just sees these problems and is becoming apathetic, I made a choice to like make it my life's work to develop a theory of change, of transformation that I actually believed in. And so one of the first things I did is I started to study national revolutions. How do national revolutions happen? Right? Not revolution like a buzzword, like we're the revolution or like whatever. Like no, but actually like fundamental transfers of power at a national scale. What are the historical precedents? How has it happened? How has it happened violently? How has it happened non-violently? Like, because I realized that like the answers to that question were going to give us clues to how we could create national transformation in our country. And that led to a whole journey, and it led to reading some material about best practices about nonviolent revolutions. And there's like 96 tactics on like the strategy and the tactics and how it can actually occur. And so I started to kind of like metabolize that and how it's happened in other countries. But America is a unique environment for a lot of different reasons. So then I started to think about like, okay, how can we apply this in our country? And one thing led to the next, led to the next, led to the next, led to the next. And ultimately I started to realize how we were gonna pull it off. And ever since I got that clarity, I kind of felt like I knew exactly what to do. And I've been doing that ever since.
I mean, you just, I just probably blew the mic. You just floored me, as again, you do in many ways. I don't know where it came from. Do you have any idea, like, how the hell are you so motivated in that way? Is it just something you feel like you were born with? And in doing the right thing and actually stepping up to that immense, gargantuan challenge?
I mean, I think there's a couple layers to the answer to that question. You know, I believe in like purpose and destiny, and I feel like we all come into this life with our own unique characteristics and skills and purpose. And there's an Indian term, dharma, that I really like and appreciate. And so I feel like we all kind of have our own assignments, and we can say yes or we can reject those. But I feel like this is a part of kind of what I'm here on this planet to do. Yeah. And so then I feel like it was in some ways kind of designed with a certain set of orientations and motivations and skills to be able to get that job done. In another regard, part of my story is that in my early 20s, I had like 10 different near-death experiences. Wow. They were just like crazy stories, one story after another. None of which where I was like in the ICU, like about to die, but situations where I was a split second away or a millimeter away from like a fatal experience. And it was like boom, 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 boom. And I kept seeing my life flash before my eyes. And I literally had like those rock climbing accident and a cliff diving accident. And I was abducted by Hezbollah in Lebanon. I thought they were going to execute me. And I was in a high-speed car chase in Nigeria where they were trying to kidnap me. And just all these different things where like I had this thing and it could have gone really, really bad. And then I came out of it and I was still like here. And I realized that I could have not been here. And I started to feel like I was living off of borrowed time. And I started to feel like if life wanted to take me out, it could have taken me out. So I very well could not be here. And I made all those decisions. I put myself in all those risky situations. And somehow like the angels or life like helped to preserve my life. And so the only like rational conclusion to that was like, okay, since I'm still here, let me just go all in for service for the rest of my life, because that feels like an appropriate way of saying thank you. Wow. So that was like a part of it. And, you know, being on the path of like political transformation and being willing to go up against like really intense incumbent powers in the world is a dangerous thing. Like, you know, it's just dangerous. And so it took me having like looked at my own death and accepted it to choose to do something that might fundamentally be dangerous, but that felt like the right thing to do. Because every day I felt I was already living off borrowed time now. Having said that, I would really, really love to live to a ripe old age with my wife and my kids, and like that's what I really want. But I feel like to say yes to this type of work, you have to have already put it all in the ring. Wow. You know, come what may. It's like another piece of the equation. And I think a third piece of the equation is like caring about the world. You know? Like, because when you see suffering and you see it from the lens of like you as an observer, they're gonna be like, oh, that's heavy. Oh, that's like a lot to take in. Like, oh, like, okay, I got it, but like, let me go back to like the thing that's like less heavy. But when you see it through the lens of the sufferer, like there's the person that's getting like swept away by the tsunami. There's the person that's being crushed by the earthquake. There's the person that's body's been blown up by the bomb, or that's looking at their daughter or husband who just got blown up in the room next to them because the missile hit one side of the apartment, not the other side. We look at it from that side, there's an infinite energy source of righteous indignation, of being angry, of being pissed, of having empathy, of having like, don't try and get in my way. Like we are going to create a world where that's not happening anymore, because that's the worst possible thing that we could possibly accept. And so when we really tap that empathy in to what people are really experiencing, or like if we have a country that like on one hand puts enables like, you know, opiates and opioids into the country that leads to people getting addicted to heroin, and or a health system that like is very irresponsible in getting people addicted to painkillers, which seems like it drives the like heroin market, but then has people just systematically lose their life and lose everything and then ultimately perish in one way or another. And like, that's like, okay. And we're not like doing anything massive about that. Like, that's so appalling that that's how our societies functions, and that that's okay. That can unlock an infinite amount of energy to do something about that. So I care about the actual suffering that the system causes to people, and that lets me not be able to not do something that I believe will create fundamental transformation to produce the result where the future generation isn't being impacted by the same bullshit as the current one is.
So much love and thank you for that, brother, because it's been inspiring for me. And like I said, it's been an awakening experience. I mean, there's many people that I've looked to level up myself, and certainly, you know, we've had limited interaction, but you have called me into a higher version of myself through the minimal contact that we've made, and I'm excited to be empowered now and to be able to potentially offer that to others, you know, at my scale, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Any scale is significant at this stage in the game. And so, yeah, I just want to, you know, thank you again, brother, for being the example that can, you know, bring more people into the light of this kind of experience. You know, I want to share real quick, if you don't mind. Before I was working in healthcare, I was a parkour athlete. And, you know, there's this phrase from Georges Hébert, who's widely kind of recognized as sort of the origin story for parkour. And he was this military French officer, naval officer that witnessed, oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting it, a volcanic eruption on one of the islands in the Caribbean. I forget what, Saint Martinique Island exploded, and people were losing their lives and perishing in all sorts of abominable and horrible ways. And he was witnessing that, helping rescue people. And that was kind of his awakening. And that's kind of the birth story of parkour in many ways, is he wanted to, you know, he created this phrase called être fort pour être utile. My French is pretty weak, but it means be strong to be useful. And so I saw so many echoes in your story and in the story in the genesis of parkour, and in the community of people that I've been talking to for almost 10 years, actually, is when I started this podcast. In so many ways, that's like, you know, the stunts and jumping over roof gaps and, you know, making ourselves really strong is an extremely powerful tool for that. And in many ways, it's like confronting death in the same way that you have been able to get yourself all in on your life. That's the training I think that parkour offers for people. And then it's time to step into that next part of it, totally. the phrase, and now that we're strong, let's change the world. 100%. And so thank you for being there and helping me see that more clearly.
Yeah, I just want to really affirm the validity of the point you're making, like using parkour as an example. It's like, it's inherently fun and interesting. It can help to make you strong, not only strong physically, but strong emotionally and psychologically to do difficult things. Boom. Now what can you do with that? And with spirituality, I feel similarly, like there's a way that we can heal our traumas. There's a way that we can activate our energy centers. There's a way we can become empowered spiritually in a lot of different ways. There's a way we can become more present. There's a way we can feel more powerful as a sexual being. There's a way that we can become more attuned to people at an energetic level. Like there's all these different spiritual gifts we have. And step number one, live a good life. Like live a better life and enjoy your life. But okay, then what? Now you've developed like a human tool that's useful and capable. And to me, like stewardship is the natural conclusion for all of it. We go through personal development, we go through spiritual development, we go through athletic development, ultimately, so we can become stronger, so that we can become more useful as stewards.
Right.
And a lot of people take the word politics and they're like, oh, that's a bad word, because the connotations around the word are just dirty and gross and lying and backbiting and deceit and corruption and manipulation, all the connotations people have around the word politics. But politics comes from the Greek root polis, which is the place, the center of the town, where people would leave their individual affairs to process the collective affairs, whether it's like farming or defense or education or whatever they were doing to be able to help to improve the quality of condition of their life and their children. So that polis was the place for stewardship. Well, stewardship is I care about the place that I call home, and so I'm going to do something about that. So the core of politics, in its truest sense, in its most noble sense, is stewardship. So you can take the concept that like we are becoming useful so you can be more effective at political stewardship. Not only just like politics as we know it, but like the politics of your home, to be a steward of your home, the politics of your community, the politics of your city, your state, your nation, your global community. Like politics is a really, really good word. It's a really, really important word. And I feel like it's the natural place for us to start to put our attention and our awareness and our capabilities. Once we've been able to get our own individual needs met, we can start to then put more energy into just better steward the collectives that we're a part of. Again, the collective of our home, of our community, of our city, and upwards of the scales.
Love that. Absolutely love that. You made me think of, there's this like self-service, little s self.
Yeah.
And then there's self-service, capital S, capital E,
Totally.
everything.
Yeah.
The grand self that we are all united in.
100%.
That you take care of one and take care of the other.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's jump into maybe some of those amazing things that you are doing now with United Independence. If you can fast forward a little bit and show and tell the story of how United Independence came to be and how the Independent National Convention came to be and what those two projects are.
Yeah, so when we think about how do we create systemic change in this country, we have to ask the question like, who's playing that? Who's interested? What's the body of people that are devoted to that? And there's all different types of analysis. A lot of them say like 3% of a nation is all that's necessary to be a part of a revolutionary effort for the revolutionary effort to take effect. Because that's a lot of people. And those people can affect other people and stuff. So, okay, where's the 3% coming from? Well, I thought about that for several years and kind of dabbled in different approaches. And then I realized, oh, American independence. They have already declared independence from both parties. And, oh, that's not 3%, that's 51%. Okay, we have a huge amount of Americans to work with here. They've already realized, they might not know how to create the solution, but they know what the problem is and they've declared their independence from it. And the Gallup polls or the voting registration are revealing that more and more people every year that is going by are choosing to no longer affiliate with a party that maybe their family's affiliated with for 4 generations. And now they're saying it's lost its moral footing and the whole thing of like, this is better than this, I don't buy it anymore, and so I'm an independent. So now we have millions, like 100 million Americans who identify as independent. So that's like a really important thing to realize.
Yeah.
Another thing to realize is that independents aren't just like another political group. Like there's like Republicans, Democrats, and independents. Oh yeah, so kind of like, no, there's a fundamental difference. Republicans and Democrats are political parties. Political parties, in my assessment, are really forms of cancer in American politics. George Washington, in his farewell address, warned the country against political parties. He said if you allow political parties in this country, they will immediately begin distorting the government to serve the interest of the parties as opposed to the interest of the people. That's what happens. So the ideal of our republic was fundamentally disrupted by the introduction of political parties. Because if you have 450 legislators in the House, or hundreds of different state legislators, or governors and mayors and city council, and all of them are individual people that hold that position, not with any particular affiliation, for maybe 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 years and then go back to their lives. And you constantly have this like government that's being replaced by individual citizen stewards for a temporary period of time. You don't have a context for an apparatus of systemic corruption to even be able to land. When you have a political party that's controlling a seat for 100 years, different people are coming and going, but the same incumbent interests, like a dock that all these corrupt private interests can dock into, is established as a political structure. So that's a very big problem because it allows for multi-generational strategies of corruption and public abuse to be able to come forward, which would never be possible if we had individual citizen stewards that were just coming and going temporarily on their own because their community said, hey, I want you to represent us for a temporary period of time. So the difference between the Republicans and Democrats and independents is independents are individual citizens. And so when an independent is elected into office, we've conducted a miniature revolution. This system, the duopoly system that's controlled this elected official, which then controls these policies and this public budget, which has the ability to undermine public interest in service to private interests for 100 years, is now replaced by an individual named John or Sally who isn't connected to any of that system of political or corporate corruption, has no motives or ulterior motives, isn't trying to like get anyone to whatever, is now able to steward authentically. They're not playing the hyperpolarization game. They can be a unifying force in their community. They're neutral in their community. They can think about the best interests of their community and without serving any other types of particular interests. So when you replace a corporate Republican or Democrat with an independent, you've conducted a miniature revolution. Okay, so we need to think about how to do that at scale. So we have 51% of Americans who identify as independents, but the vast majority of them don't vote for independence. The vast majority of them haven't donated financially to independence. So now we have to look at why that is. And there's a lot of reasons for it, but the primary reason is because independent American citizens have a limiting belief that independence can't win. So if you have a belief that independence can't win, then even though you like independence, then you would feel like I'm wasting my vote.
Right.
And then I'm not actually having an effect on one of the two candidates that could actually win. And I'm talking about for a president or Congress or anything else. So then we have to ask the question, how do we transform the national limiting belief that independence can't win? Because hypothetically, what would happen if that 100 million person base believed that independence could win? There would be a tidal wave of financial support. There would be incumbents leaving and resigning from the two parties that don't want to be there to get reelected as independents. There would be good people that thought to themselves, I'd love to run for office, but I'm never going to be a Republican or Democrat, and independent can't win, so I'm not going to run. You have talent entering into the political arena, right? There would be this like wave of energy that would move in if we could solve that belief. So our organization, United Independents, is helping to lay down the infrastructure that will produce the result of more and more independents getting elected, so that more and more people can believe that independents can get elected. So we create a positive feedback loop and start pulling our eyeballs and our attention and our dollars and our votes and our talking mouth narratives away from reinforcing this two-party system and starting to put that into individual independent citizens to get elected. So that has a lot of different layers to it. There's a technology layer. How do independents run campaigns?
Right.
There's a finance layer. How do independents fund campaigns? There's an organizer layer. How do independents get organizers to support their campaigns? There's a narrative layer. How do we build a national narrative that helps to be able to be the wind behind the sails of independent candidates? They're a part of a national independent movement. right? There's a policy layer. What are the policy positions that can help to unite independents? There's a coalition building layer. How do we build coalition as a movement to be able to concentrate support behind specific independent candidates without being a political party? So there's all these different layers, and our organization is working to be able to create solutions at each of those layers so that we can start to get more independents elected. We have not, as an organization, started doing any work in the battlefield of election activities, but that changes next year. So we've been laying the infrastructure for about 4 years, and next year we rev some of that apparatus up. And so there's a whole ecosystem of a super PAC and a PAC and a think tank and our technology company and our event, and how all these pieces fit together to be able to create stronger relationships, stronger vision, and more commitment and more empowered, capable people to engage to be able to get inside of the revolutionary battlefield of today. 250 years ago, the revolutionary battlefield was literally a continental army against the British army. Today, the revolutionary battlefield is going to be independent campaign activities. So if you see yourself as a warrior, if you want to really roll up your sleeves and get involved in independent political campaign activity, because that's the battlefield that's going to matter in the next 10 years. And as we develop the core competences and the capabilities to win those battles, we will begin to deflate the control the two-party system has on the American government and inflate the power that the American people have on the American government, which then enables us to drive critical reforms that help to be able to ensure that the same corruption can't exist in the future by way of term limits, by way of disentrenching the duopoly in the ways that they've done what they've done through gerrymandering and a myriad of other things, by way of ballot access, and by way of making government hyper-transparent, hyper-accountable, and hyper-participatory. Because those are the three medicines of a sick country that's deeply corrupted. You solve corruption with transparency, accountability, and citizen participation. Within those are three pillars that are universes of reforms and social education and social empowerment and new gov technologies. And there's a whole world that needs to come online. It's not just like a little thing, but we can do it. It's going to require a renaissance of civic engagement, but that's like, what else are we going to do, you know? So that's ultimately the work that our organization is doing. And the upcoming Independent National Convention is an event base for thousands of independents to come together, because we have to build relationships. We have to get educated. We have to see how many people are in the room, metaphorically and literally. We have to be able to connect those with resources, with those with projects, with candidates, with organizers. We have to help to educate candidates on how to run better campaigns and how to be able to get their message out in a more effective way, and how to build coalition as candidates to be able to win in general elections against Republican and Democratic candidates. So the Independent National Convention is basically the place for any American who A, knows the solutions that they want to see in the future will never come from the Republican and Democratic Party, and B, want to be a part of that solution. If anyone resonates with those two things, then come to the upcoming Independent National Convention, September 17th through 19th in Denver, because this is where our people are coming together.
Right.
And I use the term modern patriot because, again, the patriots 250 years ago were doing the revolutionary work to be able to create self-governance and to be able to extricate Britain from controlling the colonies. So the patriots today are doing the same types of things, but it's not against Britain, it's against our current modern tyrant, which is the duopoly system. The Republican and Democratic system is our modern tyrant, And so modern patriots need to be ending its reign and control of the American government and enabling the people to govern. And the people governing and the success of the independent movement are synonymous. That is what it means for the people to restore government of, by, and for the people. That's independence running the government is what makes it that. And we'll never get back to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a fundamental prayer and ethos of our nation until the people are actually the ones that are stewarding the government. Because the people are all about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right? Huge systems of concentration of power and resource and corporations and ruling elite and very, very wealthy individuals, they're looking at the concentration of power and the concentration of riches. So if they're controlling the government, that's what we're going to get, regardless of the impact on the public. If the public's controlling the government actually, then we're going to get more earnest political stewardship that's going to systematically realize that's crap, that's crap, that's crap, that's crap, that's crap, that's crap. Let's start doing some things that are actually more useful and more in service to improving the quality of the condition of people and our natural environment and the world that we're a part of. And I'm not saying there's nobody in government or there's no things that are working towards those positive effects, but if you look at a systemic level, what I see in my assessment as systemic level is you have a Republican and Democratic Party that is serving corporate interests that are abusing the American public, and the trust in government is broken. Not because government's wrong, but because the political system that's controlling government has then used the tool of government for the wrong purposes. So that's what this is all about. Is all about regaining the public control over government, bringing standards of transparency, accountability, and citizen participation back in, rebuilding trust, and therefore engagement between individuals and their government systems, and unlocking a whole new era of American politics going forward.
Wow. It's really exciting. And I'm really glad you brought in the transparency and in participation and, accountability. All those three are so important, because I think one of the things that can be a reaction to hearing all this, because I felt it to some degree, I would say, like when I first engaged at the INC Austin in 23 last year, it almost feels too good to be true. Like I actually hadn't experienced a level of synchronicity and like purpose like that since Burning Man. and we all know, well, anyone who has been there knows about that. But then there's almost like this too good to be true feeling, and like, how do I know it's going to be, not another middleman, not the same? How are we going to fall? How are we not going to, how do we keep ourselves from falling into the same traps and rotting in the same way? And so I'm really glad you brought that forward, because, blockchain's another example of an emergent technology, an emergent community of people that are taking out this middleman, the banking industry, and making a transparent, community through blockchain technology that empowers people, right? And I know that that's another sector that is involved in some of the technology and the things that you're bringing forward, but just as an example of, there are people doing it. And I just want to affirm and invite people to come and see for themselves, because ultimately that is what's required. You need to come and participate. And I just appreciate, like, if there's anything else you want to say about, that for people that feel like skeptical.
Yeah. So, relative to the event specifically, I would ask you or your audience, like, have you ever chose to go to an event that changed your life? Because you met somebody, or you had an insight, or you just got out of like your normal routine and were able to open yourself up to some new possibility that shifted the course of your life? I think you'd probably say yes. I could certainly say yes. I'm sure everybody's had that experience before. So come to the INC and you're going to have a life-changing experience. You're going to have new insights. You're going to make new connections. You're going to be a part of the formation of a growing, united, independent movement in this country, which could, and if I have anything to do with it, will have incredibly historically significant effect on the future of this country. Like, if you want to be a part of that coming online, like, come to the event. skeptical or not skeptical, I promise you, you are not going to be like, oh, I wasted my time and money to go to this event.
Right.
The education's going to be awesome. We're going to have a great time with some performers. The venue's awesome. It's just going to be an awesome experience. And we created this event to juxtapose the Republican and Democrat national conventions.
Right.
So if you don't resonate with the Republican or Democrat parties, but you don't want to be excluded from the political process, you actually want to participate, then come to the independent national convention, right? Otherwise, you're just sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah.
So go to one of the 3 conventions this year, basically, is kind of the point, right?
Right.
So,
or start your own if you really want to.
Or start your own if you want to,
but trust me, this is the
you,
moment that you want to be. This is the movement you want to be a part of.
I agree, and as the founder and executive producer of the Independent National Convention, I can pretty much tell you, you don't want to start your own. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I can also attest, just from a distance, this man, I don't know where you are hiding engines or something like. You are an inspiration. Just your work ethic is insane. The way that you communicate and you are there, truly and present at every level. It blows my mind. I mean, from the chats to the in-person things, like you really make everyone feel included, and that their voice matters, and you help them understand. And it just goes so deep that it's just truly felt. You know, your heart, the sincerity for which you approach this whole mission. It is the key to it all, because I can't see myself following or getting behind something without really feeling the truth of it and the resonance. And in my radar, this is pinging like, titanium or vibranium or something, just like it's so strong the way that you're leading it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So that's kind of the first thing, like relative to the upcoming event, right? September 17th through 19th, Denver. We'd love for your audience members to come. And then relative to like the bigger inquiry of skepticism and involvement, I would say everyone just needs to make like pretty much one fundamental choice. Like, the world is going to change. The world is undergoing rapid transformation. Do you want to be in the arena, or do you want to be in the stands? Do you want to affect the change, or do you want to watch the change, right? Like, there's people that like make what's that line? Like, people that like make things happen, or watch things happen, or say what happened, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
I've heard
like,
that one, I think.
Where do you want to be?
Yeah.
Are you inspired to play a meaningful role in creating positive impact in the world that could shift the course of history and leave your children in a better environment than they currently have, or might be if you didn't go all in for creating positive change? Like, that's the first question. It's like, do you want to be in the arena, or do you want to be in the bleachers?
Right.
If you want to be in the arena, then what arena are you going to be in? And if you're going to be in the political arena, you've got the Republican and Democratic parties, you have the Libertarian Green Party. They're like in this kind of like static, kind of like, they've had 1 or 2% of the vote for like 30 years, and they're not like going to like take over the country anytime soon.
Right.
What we're creating is a united independent movement that's creating an integration between every political organization that's not bolted onto the two-party system. So we're working with the Libertarian Party, we're working with the Green Party, we're working with the Ford Party. We're creating a context for a coalition amongst all these different independent actors so that we can work together as one integrated movement to be able to ensure that within our lifetime we end the control of the two-party system. So I call that the united independent movement. And I believe that as a united independent movement, we have the necessary ingredients to be able to drive this fundamental change that I'm talking about. So if you want to be in the arena and you want to pick which arena to be in, I've been thinking about this for 10 years. And if there was another arena to be in, I would be there. And there was an arena. And so I had to kind of step in and help to create this context. And I invite you to plug in and to become a part of this united independent movement. And coming to the Independent National Convention is one way to do it. And we'll start rolling out like more of our social media. We kind of haven't been able to get to that the last couple of years because we've been busy focused on other things, but we'll be rolling that out so we can be more engaged on the social media front and plug into the email list. We're gonna roll out membership soon, probably in spring of next year, so people become members of the United Independent Movement. They can be on an app with other members across the country. They can form local chapters. Like, that's all coming online. And people will be able to run as candidates as a part of the United Independent Movement and get support from the movement in running for office. There's a whole range of ways that people can plug. They can be organizers, they can be funders, they can be online advocates. There's a whole range of things that will be coming online. So if you want to be in an arena, I would suggest to be a part of the United Independent Movement, because I think that's the thing that's going to produce the results that all of us will be really proud of 10, 20, 30 years from now and be like, wow, we did that. Like, the people control the country, and we feel good about our government. We feel good about our executive branch. We feel good about our legislative branch. We feel good about our judicial branch. We're proud to be an American. We're proud of what we do domestically. We're proud of what we do internationally.
Abroad, yeah.
We're proud of how we develop our economy to be regenerative. We're proud of how we prioritize individual health to be holistic and regenerative. We're proud of how we raise our children. We're proud of the culture that we create. We're proud of our entertainment, that it's both the world's best entertainment and it's uplifting. Like, we're proud to be an American. Fewer and fewer people can say that these days. I'm proud to be an American. Right? I was proud to be an American. I grew up on the right, Christian, right, American exceptionalism. I grew up with the belief that America was the best thing that had ever happened on this planet. And in some ways, it kind of is amazing. Yeah. But then my bubble got popped. And I realized in so many ways, we've become the bad guy. And that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
For somebody who grew up thinking like, we're the good guys. That flag means a good thing in the world. Oh no, that flag is the thing that's dropping bombs on innocent people. That flag is the thing that's executing good presidents of other countries, so we can
our own.
So we can replace them with another president that's going to sell us bananas cheaper.
Oh my God.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, we have become terrorists in many, many regards. And that's the thing that most Americans don't want to hear, but it's the truth of the matter. So I went from American exceptionalism to being ashamed. Crap. I'm ashamed. We're doing horrible things at a very intense scale. Okay. Not going to stay there forever, right?
Right.
What we're going to do is we're going to change that which we become ashamed of. So eyes wide open, we see the problem. We can acknowledge the fact that, damn, there's some karma there. There's some negative impact that we've had. Okay, what do we have to do to make it right? How do we change? How do we make it right domestically? How do we make it right internationally? How do we undo the bad that's happened? Obviously, we can't bring lives back, but how do we transform the system so that the very systems that created negative impacts in the world create positive impacts in the world? Okay. If we can stay at that for a couple of decades, then we get to go full circle from the naivete of American exceptionalism to the eyes wide open, red pill, oh my God, shame of realizing what America's become when the people took their hands off the steering wheel, all the way back to this like deeper, when I say back, I mean there for the first time. You're back kind of at this American exceptionalism thing, but you've gone on a spiral, so you're an octave above where you ever started before, and we've never been there before. Imagine what it would feel like to be so proud of every facet of how our government functions, where the taxes you pay, you feel so good about, right? You feel so good about, because every dollar is going to something that the mayor of your city has a whole set of public goals that you're connected to, all the ways that we're going to reduce suffering, all the ways that we're going to regenerate the natural environment, all the ways that we're going to improve quality of life, all the ways that we're going to improve economic conditions. And you're like in for it, right? It's like fantasy football, but real, and everyone's a part of it. And everyone's like, how can I help and how can I play a role in helping us to move forward our city's goals and our state's goals and our nation's goals, because these are good goals, and I'm so proud of our elected officials. And maybe I'll be one day, but only for a temporary period of time, and then I'll be replaced by somebody else, and that'll be cool too. And like, let's fucking go, right? That's the America that I want to bring fully into reality. Right. And that's the best possible outcome that I can imagine, is that modern patriots change our country at a fundamental level such that the pride isn't this like hollow lipstick veneer thing, but it's a deep-seated pride in the center of our heart, that we're so grateful to be a citizen of the United States of America and everything that it stands for, and the positive effect of leadership we have on this world.
100%. 100%. I mean, that we are in many ways, despite and in spite of those glaring, issues and struggles that we might have shame around, and that we should have shame around to a large degree. America still, I've done a lot of traveling in parkour, and we still are who people look to in so many ways, and we still are the example, and we still have so much potential to guide the entire planet towards this future. And so I'm with you, and 100% like we just want to just validate like how awesome I feel about the vision that you're building.
Well, thank you for the role that you've played, right? So you and your organization have been a financial sponsor of both of our INCs. That's a really big deal.
Right.
You've hosted our Independent National Leaders Summit in your event venue. You've showed up to events, you've spread the word. So I just want to reflect back to you and your team that you're doing your part,
right,
of this movement. Like, you're really showing up and saying yes. And so other members of your audience or other people that are listening to this or watching this, like, you're invited to do your part. And there's always a financial piece, right? But for us, like, the financial piece is just buying a ticket. Like, literally buying a ticket to the event is a way to support the movement and support this event. If you've got an organization, you want to sponsor the event, or you can sponsor the event, or you're a benefactor and you can help to be able to write a larger check to be able to support the financial side of the equation, that would be absolutely fantastic. And then after the INC, we're going to roll out other ways that people can get more involved. But for now, you don't have to look beyond September. Just if this message resonates with you, then make the choice to plug in, go to our website, put your email address on our website as a step one, buy your ticket as a step two. If you're in Denver, awesome, show up. If you're not in Denver, plan a trip to Denver. If you can save up a little bit and get your flight. And
it's beautiful in September.
It's beautiful in September.
Can I say?
And make a little bit of investment. And I promise you won't regret that investment, and it'll be a positive, life-changing thing. And not only does that allow you to like support the movement, but that allows you to get involved. Exactly. That allows you to plug in, because what we need more than your like $200 ticket is your skills and your passion and your vision, and you as an innovator, and you as an inventor, and your leadership, and the community that you've assembled, and your network, and your technical skills. Like, those are all the things that the movement really needs the most. So you take the first step to show up to an event so that you can take the second step of actually getting involved and bringing your expertise and your genius and your passion, because I believe that every single American, above and beyond their financial contributions and their vote and their being an ambassador and sharing something on social media, has something unique to offer. A unique skill set, a unique interest, a unique capability that have been uniquely cultivated through their life, that provide just the exact perfect next nutrient that makes this movement successful. So that's how I might end, is with that inquiry for you and for your audience, is like, what's your gift? What's your unique interest and your unique skill set that you could show up and offer that to help to make what we're talking about today successful? because you and what you bring to the table could be the difference between the work that we're doing being fully and completely successful or not. Right? There's nothing's
100%.
like guaranteed.
The small group of people, there's nothing that changes the world, but what's that quote?
Yeah, it's Margaret Wheatley. A small group of people.
That has never felt truer.
Yeah.
Sorry to talk over you.
No, that's it.
But it's never felt truer than when I started to, again, I'm only about a year and change deep into this experience, but seeing you guys just build it out of thin air, basically, and like the momentum that's already, the velocity is going to be tremendous as we accelerate towards this future. And so it's really exciting. And if you want to start turning on that faucet of all that, fulfillment and that sense of pride and where we're going,
purpose,
come show up.
Yeah,
because
so many people are looking for purpose. This is like such a great way to land it.
It's amazing.
Do you know the story of Stone Soup? Are you familiar with that? So there's a little girl in a village that's very, very poor, and she has a black kettle. And so she takes the kettle and she builds a fire in the middle of the community, and she puts water in the kettle. She has no other food. And she goes to the river and she gets a stone, and she puts a stone in the middle of the kettle, and she starts boiling the water. And the first villager comes up and says, "What are you doing?" She says, "Oh, I'm making stone soup." Like, "Oh, what stone soup?" "Oh, it's this really delicious soup, but the one thing it doesn't have is onion." And the person says, "Oh, I have some onion." "Great, go get your onion and throw it in the stone." The next person comes up and same thing but carrots, same thing but potatoes, same thing but meat, same thing but whatever, right? By the time night falls, they've got this big pot of stew, and everybody's having the best meal they've had in months. Right? So that little girl, she made stone soup. She created the container for everybody else to participate.
Right.
So in a lot of ways, like I've been kind of like boiling this water and stirring the pot and being like, "Yeah, we're making stone soup, folks. All we need is the thing that you've got,
100%.
But by doing that, we end up with a beautiful meal, and what that meal is metaphorically is a successful national revolution that ends the control of the two-party system in this country and empowers the people in a transparent, authentic, and participatory way to govern the future of this country. So that's a meal you're interested in cooking. Bring your potatoes, bring your carrots, bring your meat, and those ingredients are your skills.
Yeah.
Bring your skills and your gifts, and this is a platform for those skills to be deployed with a very, very high degree of purpose and meaning and significance and impact.
And I would even take it to one other version of that is you might not know your skill until you show up at something like this.
Totally.
And then you might realize you're sitting on a stalk of celery that everyone just is so pumped about.
Or you might not know that your skill was needed or useful.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, "Oh, I really love doing this or that and the other
Exactly.
thing, but like I don't care about politics." But it shows up as like, "Hey, who's got this or that?" The other thing, you're like, "I do. I got that." Like, yeah, we really need that, right? So that's what.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I know you've got to go soon,
We're out there, yeah.
and I think I would be remiss though if I really wanted to if we can just touch on it, because I think this is something that some people will convolute and have convoluted in my discussions. The distinction between RFK Jr.'s campaign and what's happening in the independent movement, and then how they overlap. If you can comment on that, and then we can end it. Thank you so much for the extended time.
Of course, yeah. So there's two different ways to look at RFK's campaign. One is that he, as an individual, is a very powerful leader that I believe is one of the most qualified people to be the President of the United States of America that we've ever seen. That's just my personal assessment. And therefore, he's got a message and a campaign that millions of people are resonating with and supporting. So that's like the person-centric lens. The movement-centric lens is that millions of Americans are fed up with the two-party system. And when they see someone coming down the road that offers some degree of potential viability as an alternative, then because they want systems change, they'll support whatever is offering the possibility of that being the case. That's the movement lens. So when we see how many people are donating to RFK's campaign that have never donated to a political campaign before, which is a statistic that you can analyze, we realize that something's unlocking, right? That there's this whole energy that's been politically latent not because people don't care, but because they're not inspired. So it's evidence that when something independent and inspirational alternative comes forward, it unlocks energy, it unlocks financial resource, it unlocks people's time and their ability to organize and be a part of something. So those are kind of two different lenses, like, to start the conversation. Right now, RFK is not a leader of the U.S. independent movement, right? Because as I define it, everything that's not bolted onto the two-party system is what I define as the independent movement, including independent parties like Forward, Libertarian, Green, and others. So what's needed is leadership at that level. We need to start building coalitions and creating a unification framework that we can lead from that place. And I've been consulting the RFK campaign on how to make the shift from being an individual leader of a campaign to then becoming the leader of a coalition that then integrates all the different stakeholders in that coalition. Because RFK is a standalone person, his job is to speak his opinions about topics. But if RFK were to be the leader of the movement, he would then speak in behalf of the groups within the movement that he represents. It's a very different thing.
Yeah.
So RFK may or may not shift that gear. I've literally written them a 12-page document explaining this is how to pull this off. Maybe he does it in 28. Maybe other people show up.
Yeah.
And so the independent movement is growing with each election cycle, regardless of who the candidates are, right? So there was a gentleman named, his name just slipped my mind, Evans. He got like 48% of the Senate vote in Utah as an independent. It was like the highest like percentage in. There's some other exceptions, but the point is that we're starting to see that federal independent candidates are getting further with each election cycle.
Right.
It's like the battering ram, like hitting the door of the castle, where like the splinters are flying, the hinges are.
We can see like a crack
we can
of
see
light
a crack
now.
in it. We're getting further, right?
Right.
So RFK's campaign is getting further than any independent presidential campaign candidate has gotten since Ross Perot.
Right.
So there's this wave of energy that's moving. So ultimately, it's not about what happens in any one election cycle. It's that we're leveraging the activation energy of one particular campaign to build a long-term system of organizing.
Yeah.
So the idea is that anybody who's inspired by RFK and what he stands for, whether RFK does or doesn't get elected, chooses to plug in to be a part of the United Independent Movement. So we can make sure that RFK in 28, or the next RFK, or the next person, or the RFK of the next Senate race, the RFK of the next House race, or the RFK of the next gubernatorial or governor race, like whoever the RFK, male, female, white, black, different ages, different ethnicities, like the people, what RFK represents as a viable alternative that's speaking truth to power and can provide real leadership of, by, and for the people. As we have more of these candidates coming online, that our movement and our funders and the media, that the media allies and all the other players are ready to get more and more behind them, so that in 26, we put a block of independents into Congress. In 28, come hell or high water, we put an independent into the White House. By 2030, we are increasing the concentration of Congress by independents by a huge degree. 2030, 2032, there's a minority of Republicans and Democrats left in national Congress and state Congresses. Governors are independents, mayors are independents, city council people are independent, state legislators, like there's a conversion process that's happening, and more people are becoming independents. And what RFK's helping to do is to fuel that and to build that energy.
And it's great that he's shown up, early. Like, I don't know that like last year I would have expected that kind of momentum in that for the Oval Office.
Right.
But what I've always loved about your movement is that it's been holistic, and it's always come from every angle, from the Oval Office to the local mayor, from every possible place. that's how it's transforming, because it's not leaving anything out.
Yeah, and it's fully resilient, and it's building bottom up and top down.
Right.
Right. And so RFK speaking at the INC is just a summary of everything I just said. He is there as a candidate. He is a movement leader. He's there with a very, very powerful message. And if you love RFK, come to the INC. If you don't like RFK, the fact that he's a speaker at the INC shouldn't prevent you from coming to be a part of an event that has hundreds of speakers and is going to have thousands of amazing people to connect with. One way or another, the question is just like, do you want to be a part of the solution? And if that's a yes, then come to the Independent National Convention.
All right, thank you again so much, Christopher. It's been amazing to be with you and hear your incredible vision for the future for us as Americans and as humans, really. Thank you, brother, for being a great leader and inspiring me and empowering all of us through the work you're doing.
Thanks for having me on your show.
All right, that's it.
Bye.
All right. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you being a part of this one. And thank you to our guest, Christopher Life, for being an amazing guest. And if you go into the description, you will see the links to everything that you need. As an ambassador of the program, just full disclosure, that is a affiliate link. So, I would love to take some of the earnings if anyone does purchase. I don't really expect any kind of significant revenue per se, but I would love to invest it back into the channel, do more episodes with Christopher Life, get other guests, hear from you guys on what you want to hear. And, any support would be very much appreciated. Excited about where this channel is headed. I'm excited to be here. Didn't think I would be in this kind of conversation, a year ago or even less. But, I've been inspired, and I hope to have, shared that with you. Christopher mentions in the episode a few times modern patriots. And those of you who've been maybe a follower of mine or someone who knows the deep cuts will know that the Myrmidons, the clothing brand I'd started with friends years ago, had a clothing line that came out that was called the Modern Heroes Collection. And so there's certainly a kinship and energy and spirit with that and what Christopher's trying to bring forward as a modern patriot. And I'm happy to show up as somewhat of a modern hero in this space. I do think it's one way that you can do it. And there's a million ways to do it. And you're going to find your own way through it. I know that. So do your thing. I hope to see you at the INC. And much love. Take care.